Hey guys, it's Mike here, and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I am Mike Warren, the creator of Laughingstock Media, and on here, I usually discuss Dragon Ball, anime, and other things I'm passionate about. Over the course of my time in the Dragon Ball fandom, and also in the Christian community, I have heard a number of very interesting perspectives with regard to Dragon Ball. There are many people in the Christian community who seem to view Dragon Ball and many anime series and franchises in a very negative light. I've heard so many different thoughts about how it's anti-Christian, about how it is inherently a propaganda for this belief or that, and well, a number of other things. However, I have a unique perspective because not only am I a lifelong Dragon Ball fan, having been watching the series for about 30 years now, and also reading the manga, but also I've been a Christian for most of my life, having read the Bible, and of course, additionally, being someone who is, well, a member of both fandoms. I could walk between both worlds, let's say. And so, as a result, as someone who is very well educated on Dragon Ball, I'm going to be taking a look at some of these beliefs about the franchise, about the negative aspects of it, and if they're actually true, or perhaps they are completely misunderstood by people who don't quite understand what they're talking about. And also, on top of that, I'll be getting into some additional positive things that Christians and anyone from any worldview can take away from the creation of Akira Toriyama. So let's get into that right now. But if you are in fact new here, consider subscribing and enabling notifications because that way you'll be able to see all my videos all year round. Today, as I'm posting this, it will be Easter, but in the future, if you're watching this, well, why not give it a shot? Check this out on any holiday or any day that God has given us. So let's go into the manga. And first off, let's get into some of these ideas about it. Now, first off, with regard to Dragon Ball, is it inherently anti-Christian? Well, I don't think that there's any proof of that. In Dragon Ball, there actually is a reference to Christianity very early on in the Red Ribbon Army saga. We could see right here, in fact, that we have this scene where we have Upa, a character who is inspired by Native Americans, fighting against a vampire, and he does a cross symbol. In the anime, he actually becomes like a stained glass prismatic cross, and this power of invoking the cross, the means of the salvation of humanity through Jesus Christ, was done to allow him to inevitably defeat this evil undead being. So Toriyama, in his very scarce observations or mentions of Christianity, never is depicting it in a negative light. Sure, he might do some satire here and there of a variety of different concepts, whether it be, movies and TV shows and things of that nature, but it's not in a negative capacity. Furthermore, let's get into some of the other things that people often cite, the demonic aspects of Dragon Ball, the evil things that might be, let's say, satanic propaganda. Well, let's talk about, the demons themselves. Throughout the course of Dragon Ball, we do have some demonic characters introduced. Like, for example, the Demon King himself, Piccolo, who's kind of like the in-universe initial, before they keep introducing more characters that can kind of fit this bill, version of the devil. They even refer to him sometimes as the devil, whereas Kami, which I'll get into soon, is more viewed as like a positive godly figure. But when he's introduced, is it Toriyama saying this is a good guy and this is somebody that we should bow down and worship and, sacrilegious other aspects like that? No. In fact, when Toriyama initially introduces the concept of the Demon King, it's in a very evil, negative way that he is portrayed by Master Roshi, one of the best characters in terms of being a good guy, aside from, his own sinful quirks with his lusting obsessions, for example, which is never really depicted as a positive thing either in the story. And he talks about how this evil Demon King besieged the world. And, we see the depiction of him draped in fire as he's laying waste to the people before this cataclysm. Toriyama is kind of doing what Christianity, Judaism, and of course other ancient religions oftentimes talked about, kind of like the antediluvian age. In the Abrahamic religions, we have Noah's flood and, the time before that. In Toriyama's version of the Earth, we have the depiction of the King Piccolo Wars. Before, of course, the evil demon who wiped out most of humanity was sealed away with the self-sacrifice of his master, something that plays a lot into some of the positive themes of the story of self-sacrifice, which I'll get into soon. Of course, this evil demon king would go on to be defeated by the selfless child who is the main protagonist of the story. At that point, we would get introduced to his reincarnation, Piccolo Jr., who would go on to fight against Goku. But Piccolo Jr. is somebody who, again, is depicted as evil, does evil things, but is inevitably defeated by the main character. He is not somebody who is depicted as a good guy, at first at least, and somebody who is inherently worthy of worship or something like that. No, he's depicted as being an evil bad guy who is somebody that is going to be inevitably helped to along his path of redemption and salvation, perhaps. And we'll get into that a little bit more. Now, also, of course, we have a being like Majin Buu. Majin Buu, of course, is an evil, demonic kind of jinn type of being, a character kind of like the demonic beings from Islam and other faiths, of course. He is an evil representation of the darkness of not only humanity and of mortality, but also of the universe, the sinful nature, let's say, of existence after the fall from the Christian perspective, who inherently has been turned into a physical, tangible being. But again, Majin Buu is shown to be, evil. He is pure evil, Aku Buu. And in turn, he is the one who fought against the gods of the universe. I'll talk more about the gods, plural, momentarily. And what does he do? He and his evil brings about the destruction through fire, much like in Revelation, for example, of the earth. But inevitably, he is also, again, defeated, wiped away. And there's a positive message behind what happens in the inevitable defeat of Majin Buu. Because when he is killed, inevitably, by the good of humanity coming together in order to combine their good faith and their good energy in order to inevitably kill him, Goku actually asked for a positive thing to occur in this case. He says he says kind of a prayer, let's say, where he says that he hopes that someday he'll be reborn as a good guy. Of course, this is based upon the Eastern beliefs. Of course, Christians, many of them believe that they shouldn't watch anything that depicts evil or sin or other belief systems. Personally, I don't align with that. I don't think that my faith in any way is ever challenged by watching a movie or reading a comic book or a cartoon or anything along those lines. My faith is strong enough to where it is never led astray by watching things of this nature. Instead, I think it's fascinating to look at other worldviews and perspectives like Eastern beliefs, where they have, for example, reincarnation, which you can argue even Christianity has, with like the new heaven, the new earth, and everything like that. And Toriyama often will borrow ideas from even Christian beliefs. And so we have here him wishing for essentially the salvation of even this evil being, because Goku is inherently good at heart. And what ends up happening at the end, he in fact has that happen. The evil Buu is reborn as the good-hearted Oob and given the role of the disciple of Goku, who inevitably will be able to help the Earth in the future to protect it rather than leading it to its destruction. Now, with that being said, there are some other things that people will immediately point to when they say that this is satanic propaganda and it's evil, particularly a character with Satan in his name. And that would have to be Mr. Satan himself, Hercule in the English dub, because they wanted to censor any religious, especially Christian types of allusions. So What is Mr. Satan depicted as? Well, a deceiver and a fool. He is somebody who pretends to be the strongest one, but look at this. Everyone thinks that this guy is a moron and he's going to get killed. Finally, we do see his strength, quote unquote, on display. In the anime, we see him pulling buses. In the manga, what does he do? He goes to chop the tiles down to show how strong he is, but he can't break the final tile. This was a tough feat for Mr. Satan and something that I definitely can't do in real life, but nonetheless, it's still something that everyone is saying this guy is an idiot, even though he has tricked many of the people of the world. Of course, what is Satan? The deceiver of man, the one who led to the fall in the Garden of Eden in the Bible, in the book of Genesis. And what is he doing here? Tricking and deceiving everyone. But the second he goes up against the villain, it's shown just how weak and powerless he truly is, as he's immediately unable to hurt the character and then gets slapped away, whereas Cell put literally no key into it, as they were saying afterward, because he didn't even think this guy was worth killing. However, again, what happens? Even though Mr. Satan lost, he lies and he deceives and he pretends that he actually was not defeated. And what happens later on? After Cell is defeated by the good guys, the heroes, well, he lies again. He tricks the people of the world, saying, oh, I beat him, I knocked him out with a swift chop, I hit him into orbit, etc., etc. And of course, the people of the world are tricked one more time by the Satan as they chant his name, because they don't realize this is the case. However, Mr. Satan, again, like many of the villains in Dragon Ball, is able to essentially be redeemed in a sense, because not only in this arc, even though he is lying, deceiving, he actually helps to carry Android 16's head in order to allow it to speak to Gohan, to reveal to him that, you know, some beings are just truly beyond words and they're evil and they must be cast down. Much like, you know, in the Bible it talks about it's time to put your cooking pots down and to lift up your swords. And, you know, depending upon the time, you know, you put your swords down, pick up your cooking pots. For everything there is a time and there is a season. And the symbolic messianic character is the one who inevitably is able, through the redemptive actions of Mr. Satan and another villain, Android 16, initially able to utilize the power inherent within him to become the one who can inevitably defeat the evil being who is also not only a representation of the good guys, but also the villains simultaneously in the story. It's very strong themes, which again are not inherently contradicting anything in Christianity. Now, a lot of people could bring up the ideas of the other gods, for example. You know, of course, in Christianity, it's a monotheistic religion. There are lower beings, the angels, the heavenly hosts, in certain depictions, certain translations, gods with a lowercase g, whereas there is God with an uppercase G. The Godhead, Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, Yahweh, and so on and so forth. But in Dragon Ball, Toriyama, again, he was doing more of like a spoof, a satire in a lot of cases. In this case, he had God of the Earth being, well, the being who is the good half of the equation between him and Piccolo Daimao. Nothing here is inherently mocking Christianity. Nothing here is inherently saying, you know, we must bow down and worship this false idol. No. It's actually more of the idea that all of these divine beings that are introduced in the story, ultimately, while they play a role within the heavenly bureaucracy, let's say, which is a part of Eastern beliefs, but at the same time, there is nothing inherently, let's say, you know, based in us having to worship these beings. Toriyama isn't saying, oh, King Yema, he's the judge of the afterlife, you know, much like Saint Peter or Jesus, depending upon your beliefs. And as a result, he's the one who helps for Goku to be able to go to train with King Kai, another higher god. But at the same time, it's never told to us we should worship these beings. Additionally, Goku and the others are constantly surpassing them. They're making them outmoded. By the time somebody like Supreme Kai shows up, for example, the god of the gods in this universe, the one who's able to create everything like that, in the manga they call him the Lord of Lords, which of course is one of the terms for Jesus, the King of Kings, Lord of Lords, and so on. The fact of the matter is, nothing is being told to us to worship them. In fact, all these paganistic and alternate types of divine beings that Toriyama introduces are pretty much always outmoded by the characters either the second they're introduced or within time. It's only in Dragon Ball Super with Beerus, the god of destruction, the Hakai Shin, that it takes them a little while to catch up. But even above them, well, they have the angels, which are way stronger than their Hakai Shin. And then you have Zeno, the god of existence, seemingly, except there's more than one of him. So there's always a higher being. In terms of, does Christianity fit into this world? Well, based upon everything we see, not necessarily. But at the same time, the idea is that this is a fantasy story. It's fiction. It doesn't have to fit into the real world. It doesn't have to reflect our real world aside from, well, in satirical and spoofing ways. It is meant to be fun, enjoyable, escapism. It is not meant to be 100% depiction of anyone's worldviews, which again makes perfect sense as to why I don't think that, there's anything inherently wrong with what they show us. The thing is that, again, like I said before, many Christians will only watch things that, are not of the world, so to speak. They are inherently, more reflective of Christian worldviews. They'll only listen to gospel music. They'll only watch movies that are inherently biblical in nature, or they won't watch them at all, which I think they're missing out on a lot of great art and escapism and things that you can enjoy. You don't have to bow down and worship false idols because you enjoy comics or movies or TV shows. You're just enjoying the art that's been created, which is essentially the emulation of the creator. The glorification of God through art. And also, let's talk about some of the positives here. Goku especially is a character who, well, he in many ways symbolizes the good aspects of Christianity, or at the very least has things that Christians can agree with and take away from based upon their worldview. For example, Goku's ideals allow him to love his enemies and spare them, just as Jesus spoke about. He spares the reincarnation of the Demon King, which inevitably leads to him having his own sort of salvation where he helps to raise Goku's son after Goku sacrifices himself. Of course, Jesus died for the sins of mankind through the passion of the Christ, of course, and then rose again. Goku symbolizes that very well as well. He dies for his son, and he dies for humanity, and allows the death to be taken alongside his evil brother as Piccolo brings his life to an end. But then Piccolo, like I said before, the evil being is able to, well, go on to help raise the child of his former enemy and help him to save the world. Eventually, Piccolo reunites with Kami, the good god of the earth, let's say, the being who, had everything placed over him, kind of like in Genesis after the Tower of Babel incident. The gods, the lower beings, are the ones who are placed at the head of the different nations. Very similarly with Kami over the earth, and they go to, well, worship, or they go to merge, showing that his character has gone from evil to good and coming full circle and being unified in that sense. Additionally, we also have other instances of this. The evil emperor of the universe, who wiped out Goku's entire people, who did so many terrible things, killed his friends and family, people who can't even come back. What does he do? He begs Goku for his help after he's been defeated by his own hand. And what does Goku do? He spares him. Not just here, allowing him the energy to continue onward, but retroactively, he also held back a little bit when he does this, allowing Frieza to come back. Frieza, of course, is always depicted as bad. He's always somebody who doesn't have his redemption and salvation, but Goku still allowed him the chance time after time after time. It's only because of his evil actions and his denial of such things that that ends up coming to be. Then, of course, there is again Goku's giving up his, before that, actually, let me do this again. Goku actually allowed Vegeta to be spared too. Krillin was going to kill him, but Goku said, no, please wait. I don't want him to die. Now, Goku's reasoning also was because he wanted to fight him again. He wanted to test himself. He wanted to defeat him naturally, which ties into the ideas of being your best self. What does Paul say in the letter to the Corinthians? Do everything to your best to glorify God. Well, Goku does everything to his maximum. Dragon Ball inherently with its ideas are its ideals that it instills within its characters and which people, have taken heed from. It says to be your best self, to surpass your limits, to achieve your greatest self. And all things are possible through God who sustains me, as it says in the Bible, right? You can surpass any limits and glorify God in the process. Again, interlinking into one another, as well as the ideal of sparing your enemies and loving them. And eventually, Vegeta becomes one of the greatest allies to Goku and friend of him because of all of this that has happened. So again, that is another great example. And then we have Goku sacrificing his life yet again for his son and for humanity. He looks selflessly at his friends, he smiles with love, and he gives up his life in an instant to die for everyone. And then he does it again, where he chooses to remain dead, to go to heaven after sacrificing himself so that the enemies will not return. Of course, they do end up because, that's kind of how Dragon Ball is. There's always another big bad that comes along. But again, that big bad who Goku inevitably kills is somebody that, again, as we showed earlier with Oob, is somebody who received a kind of semblance of salvation. Even the evil beings can be redeemed. And that's something we see time and time and time again in Dragon Ball. Now, there are things, again, like magic, that people will say, oh, black magic, that's very sinful. And of course, there are things like, the people, when Mr. Satan helps Goku to gather the energy for the Spirit Bomb, again, using the evil type of manipulative deceiver character to help things do it. You see the people of the earth chanting Satan. But again, these are not things that are literally telling us to worship this, to bow down to this, so on and so forth. It is satirical. It's Toriyama sending a little bit of a message about how humanity could be misswayed and send in the wrong direction, which the Bible talks about time and time again. And inevitably, we do get the conclusion, the finale of the evil being overcome by the good and being given a chance of redemption one more time. So, all throughout Dragon Ball, we see example after example of things that are in line with the Christian worldview. Ideas of self-sacrifice, of bettering yourself, of doing the right thing, of evil being able to be redeemed, of so many different aspects that tie into the Christian worldview, or at least that Christians themselves can take away in a positive way from the story. Dragon Ball isn't the only one that's like that. There's other anime, there's video games, movies, TV shows, and so many people just skip them. They miss out on them because the fact that they're so afraid that if they enjoy this content, it will be partaking in sin in the ways of the world. But I think from my perspective, which is also the Christian perspective, that inherently the only book we need to read is not necessarily just this one. It isn't the only thing that God has given us in our lives to enjoy, to take part in. And I think that anyone who creates fantasy and fun escapism and things that are, essentially emulating God and the creation that he's made, also will be able to give us things that we can instill within ourselves that also lead us further into that direction. After all, God doesn't just speak through Christians, right? And their art, he also speaks through atheists and people who believe in completely different worldviews, and everyone is open to be saved through the gift of salvation that we celebrate on the day that I'm releasing this of Easter through the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And thus, as a result, I believe that as a Christian, Dragon Ball has a lot to offer you. It is not satanic or evil propaganda or anything like that. It's a fun story that maybe you might not agree with everything that's in there, but inherently you could still enjoy and take away things that make you to be an even better person, just like the Bible. And of course, I thank Toriyama for all of his hard work that he gave us this. And, I pray for him just as I pray for every single one of you. So thank you all for watching this video. Let me know your own thoughts down below in the comments. If you like this content, you could subscribe to my channel, enable notifications, and stick around because there's a lot more to come in the future. God bless.
Yeah, and you better subscribe.